What is the learning phase on Facebook? Hi, I'm Charlie. I'm here to help. We're going to make Facebook simple and easy. Let's go. Okay, so the learning phase. You've all seen this on your accounts, and probably a lot of you have it occurring far too often. What does it actually mean? What can we do about it? And how does it have any implication on what we're doing? Let's cover all of those stuff today. I'm excited. I hope you are too. Let's get to it. So, what is the learning phase? What does that even mean? So, the learning phase is Facebook's way of telling you that it is not confident that it can deliver a consistent result day in, day out. So it's a salesperson or an employee that says, I don't think I'm good enough at my job yet. All right? That's functionally what it means. It doesn't mean that it's doing a bad job. It doesn't mean that it's doing something that's a liability to your business. You could absolutely have something in the learning phase that's crushing your goals, right? If your ad is good and your offer is good and everything else, like, you can absolutely win on day one. That's 100% possible. So I see a lot of these people talking about like warming the pixel and all this other 100% nonsense. And we'll get into that in something else. You can check it out here. Okay, so with that being said, the learning phase is Facebook's way of saying that it is not confident it can deliver you a consistent result. It means that your results are more than likely to be inconsistent. There will be a lack of stability of the performance from day to day. Now, that's what it actually means. What is the implication of that, though? Let's get to the next part here. The implication of the learning phase is that you are investing in somebody, an employee, that is not certain it can do a good job. Now, how does that ultimately affect you? Is while it can do really well for you, it could also do really poorly for you. It also means that you should not confidently be evaluating the performance of that initiative. So what I'm getting at more than anything is when something's in the learning phase, it means Facebook is raising its hand and saying, I'm dumb. Do not rely on me for your success. Now, there's a really big metric that I very, very often will go into accounts and try to focus in on. And one of those pieces is how much of your spend on a daily basis is inside the learning phase. Action item right now. When you're done with this video, go to your Facebook account and say, how many of my ads hits, how many of my campaigns, how many dollars of every dollar I'm going to spend today is in a place that's in the learning phase? How much am I investing in a place where Facebook is telling me that it's not very confident it's going to deliver a good result? How much risk am I investing into on a daily basis to hopefully see a win? And how upset am I going to be when my results are inconsistent from day to day? How much am I the architect of my own confusion and frustration? How much responsibility do you have in Facebook not delivering a consistent result? That's a fundamental thing that I want you to start to wrap your head around. Well, all of that is, it's all well and good. What are we going to do with this information? Well, there's three things that we can do. Number one is let's try to avoid the learning phase at all possible. Now, how do we do that? We can avoid the learning phase by allocating enough money and time, making the proper investment into that business initiative to get Facebook to be confident in its result. So, what does that look like? We're getting to point number 2 here. How do you get out of the learning phase? Is you need to see between 25 and 50 or so conversions on a regular basis for Facebook to understand what good and bad looks like. The more data you give a machine learning platform, the more confident it's going to be at delivering consistent results on the data that you're giving it. I mean, think of it as an employee or a student. The more lessons that student takes and the more actions that it takes out in the real world to try to implement those lessons, the better they're likely to be at doing whatever it is that you're teaching them. The exact same thing is happening here. I think most people, while they know that Facebook's a machine learning algorithm, don't take any real effort to teach it. And if you're going to use a machine learning platform but not make an effort to teach it, you can't be very upset when it's dumb and inconsistent and unreliable because you haven't made the effort to actually give it the opportunity to provide any of those things for you. So the third point, what are we trying to do here? And what I want to get to is this, with the learning phase, is understand that if you're going to invest in something new, the learning phase is an absolute given. Now, that's a bit of a risk, but just like when you hire a new employee, think of every ad set as an employee in your business, and every campaign as a division in your business, as a department. Every time you hire somebody, you cannot possibly expect them to do nearly as good as the employee that's been with you for 2 years. Even the one that's been with you for 2 months. Day one, every employee is probably not that good. Week one, they're not that great. Hopefully by the end of the first week, second week, third week, like they found their groove. Facebook ad set is the exact same thing. 100% the exact same thing. So how many employees are you going to try to hire this week or today? And how much rope are you going to give them until you fire them? And if an employee does really good on day one or day two or day three and then struggles on day four, are you going to just can them? Odds are no, right? Odds are you wouldn't do that in the real world. So why are we doing it on Facebook? I think functionally this is a big piece that a lot of players that I know, one, either don't understand, in which case they're not the people that should be teaching stuff because they've been ignoring Facebook's best practices that they've been taught for the last 3 or 4 years when enough case studies came out to prove this thing. And then honestly, as somebody that's personally been responsible for 9 figures of revenue since then, I've done a lot of case studies that has also proven it. And I've been implementing it constantly. And I get a lot of people giving me flack for trying to show them that their hard work and trying to be smart and chasing down short wins functionally is a liability to their business instead of just leaning into using the tool correctly. Right? We're not trying to build houses by hammering things in with a screwdriver. No. If Facebook is inconsistent and dumb because you haven't invested in its learning and teaching it how to succeed, then the responsibility falls on you. So let's get back to the learning phase. I hope this all makes sense about what the learning phase is, and hopefully this is also kind of wrapping your head around why chasing down short con wins and like, well, this interest group is doing really good today. Doesn't fucking matter to your business. What lookalikes are working right now? Doesn't matter to your business. Or, well, everybody's really killing with images right now. Doesn't matter to your business. All of these short con wins that people are bragging about without context, where they're chasing the next win, is all places where they brought in an employee that did really good on the first few days and then tripped up and they just fired him on day 10. Like, oh, you had a great first week, and then in the second week, you screwed up something at the copy machine and showed up 2 minutes late to a meeting. You're fired. How are you supposed to build a business and a successful ecosystem to operate your empire when you're cutting every single person that doesn't do good for a couple of days? Like, that's just stupid. And yet most people that I see trying to teach Facebook ads are building themselves around this concept. And why do they do it? Because that is actually the best practice for programmatic and for search. It was 100% the right thing to do in demand and inventory-based platforms. And it still is. And most of the people that are at the top that are preaching all this stuff, either one, they're snake oil salesmen that just use other people's work and sell it off. I'm not going to name names, but there's a lot of those people that aren't actually practitioners. And two, there's a lot of people that made a lot of money on email and affiliate and Google and programmatic banner ads, which 100% I'm not talking ill of those disciplines. If you made money that way, great. If you got really successful 5-10 years ago on that, awesome. but I'm also not going to put a lick of faith into anything you have to say about something that is wildly outside of your wheelhouse, especially when your advice and the things that you're bragging about on the internet or complaining about on Twitter, David, is something that has no relevance in an optimized CPM platform. By the way, what we're talking about here is an optimized CPM experience. It's not just Facebook. It's any platform that uses machine learning and an algorithm to curate a customer experience. So what else do we see with this in? Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, literally anything where you don't see everything, single thing from somebody in a programmatic way, right? Now, search results. This does not apply to search because search results is demand-based. I know what I'm looking for. I'm wanting a very specific thing. Whereas on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or whatever, you swipe to refresh and then whatever is there, hopefully it's good. And Facebook's prioritizing, trying to make whatever you see the best thing possible. So I'm hoping that this all kind of coalesces and makes sense for you. Now, the last thing that I want to get to is, well, how do we stay out of the learning phase? I hope that this is an action item that you're actually interested in. Is let's build evergreen endeavors, right? Like you don't need to worry about the next great audience because that is irrelevant to you. What's important is building audiences based around certain business principles. So you might be doing prospecting on a quantitative solution by going broad. Quantitative solution. You're getting the most amount of impressions possible for the least amount of money and letting Facebook collect as much data as it possibly can to stabilize your business. You might also have a stacked 1% lookalike based around, I don't know, previous buyers, high cost people, folks have given you their email address, etc. And that's one audience. So that's a qualitative solution. You've restricted the environment, which means you're going to be paying more as a base CPM, but you're counting on a better estimated action rate so that your bid is lower in the algorithm, right? Like in the auction, your bid is lower because the way the bid works, what Facebook decides to charge you is you have a base CPM and they modify that by your budget. How much are you willing to spend? How much is each ad actually going to spend? It's how much work does each ad have to do and the estimated action rate. How likely is somebody to respond positively? Because remember, ads aren't actually the standalone thing. They're just web pages. Every ad is a web page. Facebook looks at the bounce rate, the stickiness, and the click-through rate of that web page. How likely is somebody to engage positively with your web page? How likely is that to make them get the hell off of Facebook? The larger of a burden you are, the more money you're going to pay. And the better of a boon you are to their ecosystem, the less you're going to pay. So you have a quantitative solution where you're understanding you're reaching more people that are probably not good for you, but because you're reaching them for a far cheaper price and because it's a far more stable environment that's effectively almost infinitely scalable, then you're good. And if you can win there, you're solid. Then you have a qualitative solution where you are paying more but for higher quality inventory. Then that's a great place. That means you don't ever have to get back into the learning phase there unless you jack up your budgets or if you change ads inside of it. And in those cases, sometimes those are the right things to do, and it may change, it may put the ad back into the learning phase, but the majority of the time, this is just a formality. Like if you're on a campaign that's on CBO and it goes from 500 to 600 or 500 to 800, yes, you're going to throw it back into the learning phase because you've changed the algebra that Facebook needs to understand to deliver a consistent result so that it keeps somebody on top of the platform while also meeting your business objectives and matching that estimated action rate to the cost of the inventory. It's going to take some data sets to figure that out. But the smaller the change, the quicker it's going to figure that math out because it's not that much of an alteration to the algorithm. So this is why if you want to improve something, you take away a bad option and you insert better options, right? So if you're trying to optimize an ad set, don't like throw your budget from $50 to $200 and try to chase good days and surf all this stuff and then take 5 different ad sets that are all targeting the same thing. And when you see good, you take some ads out of here and you throw 10 more over there and you turn off 5 over here. Those are all highly disruptive. What you're doing is you are limiting the ability for Facebook to deliver a consistent result because you're making the algebra to solve that problem more and more complicated. So Don't get in the way of Facebook delivering you a consistent, stable result. And if your consistent, stable result isn't good enough yet, well, then you can go into the learning phase and start to do testing, systematic testing at individual points, creative, strategic, and tactical, to try to improve your standalone evergreen environment. I hope that helps. I hope that this is really working for you. As I say all the time, hi, I'm Charlie. I hope I was helpful for you. Let me know if there's anything else I can do to make this easier for you, because I want you to win. I want you to win.